Condo, co-op, townhouse, new development. They're all different, which is why it can be overwhelming to buy in New York City. There are not only 4 different categories of homes you can buy, there's also 339 neighborhoods in New York City, so it can be overwhelming. And while vertical living does create convenience, it also brings complexity to the table. There's no doubt about it. The New York City housing market is much more complicated than the rest of the country. But let's go through the 7 tips that will prepare you to transact successfully. Step number 1 is to understand why it is complex and why it is different. We started mentioning co-op condos, new development, and townhouses. Well, they all have their particular rules about how you buy, and no 2 buildings are exactly alike, although there are general guidelines. In general, a condominium, you own real property, and so you can purchase that and rent it out from day 1. And you will be required to fill out a purchase application, but it is highly unlikely that you would ever be denied by a board. The second is a co-op. The co-op is shares in a corporation, and you are evaluated on your financial statement, and you can be rejected, although it's rare, and you can't necessarily rent out a co-op. You have to check with building rules. What about a new development? Well, most new developments are condos, but not all, but most of them are. But there are different ways you purchase from a sponsor. That is a whole other process, and you need to work with a new development expert if you're going to buy in a new development. And then finally, townhouses. Well, townhouses only represent under 2% of the entire housing stock. So unless you are a dedicated townhouse buyer, you don't have to get too concerned about that. Step number 2 is to set a realistic budget. Let's start with a condominium. That would be 10% down payment, but a co-op can typically be 20% or more. So you have to check each listing to see what that requirement is. And same with a new development. You're going to have to find out what that particular sponsor requires to purchase in the building. Townhouses are much like condo, not only in terms of the amount down, which is 10%, but also closing costs. So when you're putting together your budget, next up is the closing costs. Those can be anywhere from 5 to 7% of your purchase price. So that's a lot of money to have on hand before you buy. But if you're buying in a co-op, you also need money left over in the bank in order to be approved by the board. They are going to want to see, once you have put your down payment money down, once you have paid the closing costs, that you have anywhere from 12 to 24 months of housing costs in the bank account. That will be not only your mortgage payment, but also your maintenance charges. So that is step number 2. Sometimes people ask me about specialty loans, whether those be FHA or VA loans, which are very popular in the rest of the country. They are very rare in New York City, almost to the point where it makes it very hard to search for a property based on that criteria. I'll never say never, but it is tricky. Step number 3, get pre-approved for your mortgage before you go looking at properties. Now, I realize this is not the fun part. The fun part is going to see the properties, but you can really wear yourself out. There's so much to see, even if you've narrowed it down to a few neighborhoods. So understand exactly what you can afford before you start putting together your list. And you don't want to miss out on a property. You will have to put down your pre-approval with your offer. And if you're not ready, somebody else could beat you to your dream home. Another reason you want to get that pre-approval up front is you might actually qualify for some special programs that will either bring down your rate or give you cash toward closing. That's incredibly valuable. Now, you can go to your favorite bank, or you can speak to a mortgage broker. A mortgage broker will have access to a wide variety of loans to help you make your decision. So for example, if you are self-employed, those will be different financial hoops to jump through, and a mortgage broker can help you figure out the right lender for your needs. Step number 4 is to establish focused goals for how you are going to use the property. So you've already identified the types of property you would buy: condo, co-op, townhouse, or new development, and it might be a mix of those. And you have your budget in place. Well, how do you live? Do you want to take the subway to work? Do you commute to work outside of the city? Do you work from home? What conveniences do you need around you, or what conveniences do you need in the building? So certainly if you want things like a gym, a pool, a full-time doorman, outdoor space, all the wonderful amenities that can make vertical living so enticing, that comes at a cost. Your monthly charges will be higher. Well, maybe you're not somebody who uses all that and you don't need those charges. You will be looking at different properties. So think about how you're going to live long before you get to the property so you can narrow down your search even further. Then think about the neighborhood. I've had plenty of buyers who were outdoor enthusiasts who needed to be on their bike or running, and they want to be close to a major park, whether that be Prospect Park in Brooklyn or Central Park in New York City. And that could also be a big part of how you decide whether or not a home is right for you. As you're making your list of must-haves, I always recommend that you really only have top 3 must-haves and leave some things open for negotiation. You might find that going a little bit further outside of the neighborhood range you identified gives you better pricing. You might find that you actually need a smaller apartment than you thought. There's lots of ways you can be flexible to get the ideal home for your budget and your lifestyle. Step number 5, I highly recommend you work with a top New York City real estate agent. You are not obligated to do so, but it will help you navigate the process. As every single building is different, you're going to have a lot of questions, and an experienced agent will not only be able to answer those questions, but help put the answers into context. They'll also be able to ask questions about a property that are meaningful and help you understand why. One of my favorite questions buyers always ask is, how many days has this property been on the market? Well, that's a legitimate question, but you can't decide that, oh, I think 30 days is too much if in the current environment, the average days on the market is 180 days. So an agent who is in the market day in and day out, helping people like yourself, well, they can help you make good decisions by giving you the local knowledge. The next thing an agent will do for you is help negotiate. Now, the market is always moving up, down, and depending on where you are in the market and the pricing of the particular property, that will dictate the strategy of how you negotiate an offer. And an agent with information about what's happening in the market today in detail can help you get the best price possible. Next up is a list of the agent's resources. Agents have a ton of contacts, whether that be the banker that suits your needs, the contractor, the plumber, the electrician, the real estate attorney, whatever it is you need. A top New York City real estate agent will have a vetted list that they can share with you. The other thing they're going to be able to do is when you hit a speed bump, and you will, all deals do, they will know exactly who to reach out to resolve the matter. Even if they don't have the answer, they'll know who to go to. Step number 6 is to understand your rights as the consumer. In New York City, we certainly follow fair housing laws and then some. We have more protected categories than in the rest of the country, where they are already quite robust. When you work with an agent, you should expect them to give you a non-discrimination form and an agency disclosure form. And now you can also expect them to let you know who is paying the commission, and that is dependent on the seller. So you will need to know property by property. Is the seller paying the commission, or are you expected to pay your buyer agent's commission? So sort that out in advance. Step number 7 is to understand in advance that you will be retaining a real estate attorney to help you with the transaction. While your agent will have already helped to negotiate all the business terms of the deal, the real estate attorneys will negotiate the legal ends of the deal, and that will include the purchase contract along with title insurance, clearing title, and everything that will take you from the time you have an accepted offer to the closing table. Your agent will still be active during this time period. They will be making sure that everything's taken care of in a timely manner and making sure everyone has the information they need to keep the deal rolling forward so you get your new home. Purchasing property in New York City not only requires you to be prepared by following these 7 steps, but it requires you to take your time, be flexible, build professional relationships, and while it is complex, ultimately it's very rewarding. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're inspired. But if it's creating more questions than I can answer in the few minutes we have together, certainly feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer your questions and set up a time to talk. Or you can simply go to the Bolin Team YouTube channel. My team and I have put together a number of videos that might answer your questions. I am Julia Bolin, principal of the Bolin Team at the Corcoran Group in New York City. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit the bell so you never miss one of our videos. We aim to bring transparency to a very complicated market.